It is incredibly rare for me to have a SOG multi-tool for review. And this time around, we actually are going to be looking at 4 of them, 4 different tools. Now, in general, I've said, not really for me. I'm not really a SOG fan. These tools might have changed my mind. Now, I'm not saying that they're perfect, far from it, but there might be more genius in this design than I gave them credit for. And that is what we're going to talk about today. So we're going to start this video talking about a tool that I've already covered, or at least I've already played with in the past, and that is the Powerallack. Now there are 2 variations of this. There is the Scissor variation and the V-Cutter variation. That is the only difference between them, and there's about a $2 difference on Amazon as well. Now, if you're wondering where can I find this gold version, you can't unless you go to eBay. These are a limited edition titanium nitride coated variants, and the reason I got them is because unlike the base variations, these are actually going to be more resistant to corrosion because of that coating, and that makes them kind of special and unique and a little bit different than anything else that you can buy right now. That being said, where we kind of need to reevaluate with the Powerallack is in the price. In the past, I mean, these were like $90 or even $100 or sometimes more. But right now, you can buy a brand new Powerallack in both variations for less than $55. When I go to eBay and look at older tools, the used ones are actually more expensive than a new Powerallack, which is kind of crazy. I definitely think that we have to reevaluate with that context. Now, the tool set here is exactly the same as the ones you'll be buying on Amazon. I don't think there's any difference, and the materials are also the same. So let's put one aside and we'll take a look at the tool set. So if we open this up, we'll open one side, and as you can see, and this is kind of to start things off, there's a little hidden trick with the Powerallack. If you want to get access to the internal implements, you hold the cover, you open it, and it will lock into the plier head, and it gives you plenty of space to reach in, grab whatever you want, select it, and then close it again. So let's say we grab the V-Cutter and close the tool. And then if I want to open it, I can open that up the same way, and boom, it's closed. This is something I missed the first time around, and is actually a trick that I saw on YouTube. I can't remember who, but it would have made me evaluate this a lot differently because of how much easier it is to go in, select a tool. Well, the clumping is obviously an issue, but you select one tool, close the rest, and you're ready to rock and roll. That's a lot easier than the Super Tool 300, any of the MP600 series tools from Gerber, or yeah, most other tools out there. So that have an internal mechanism for opening. So honestly, really like that. Really nice design. Now, we'll start with this side, I think, since we already have it open. Let's pull everything out. There are 4 implements on this side. We have the partially serrated blade. Close that up. It's actually not a bad blade in this case. Not too deep on the serrations, which makes it a little bit easier to pull through material. No problems there. We have a flathead and bottle opener, pretty standard in most multi-tools. And then we have the V-Cutter, which is absolutely fantastic, probably one of the best things that SOG makes, and almost no one beats them at. And we also have a 1/4 inch driver. Now this is really cool. It's a little bit thinner than a lot of the bit drivers out there, but it lets the tool work with any 1/4 inch square to 1/4 inch hex driver. Like this. That's pretty sweet because even if you don't have the SOG, kind of version, there's tons of kits out there that would work great that don't need any additional integration. There's no additional bit extenders or bit kits. You can pretty much use anything you have. That is something I really, really like. Now, let's go to the other side and take a look and see what we have. So we open this one up here, and I tell you, this is so much easier now that I know this little trick. So keep those covers on there. There's a good reason for them. Actually, a couple of good reasons for them we'll talk about later. So on this side, there are actually 6 implements. There's actually a spacer right there So it could have technically had 5, but it didn't. This has a pretty good tapered saw. I like the teeth on this one. The reamer awl on it is excellent, in fact, very, very sharp and nice and long. We have a pretty robust flathead, which I'm sure people will use for prying. There is a full 3-dimensional Phillips, but it has a really narrow stalk, so it'll be easy to have these other implements. I actually really like that. And then we have a can opener with a small flathead and a file. Now this file, the crosscut is okay, but not great. And it has a flathead, which is sort of like, in my opinion at least, kind of the cardinal sin, because you have a certain hardness that is necessary for files, and it doesn't bode well for the twisting motion of a steel implement. So putting a flathead on here is kind of like asking to break something. And my guess is people are going to do even worse. They're going to put it in there and they're going to, you know. I would love them to get rid of that flathead just to kind of prevent people from accidentally doing it. And also to add a diamond file, but you know, here we are. At $52, $54 for the V-cutter variation right now. This is a really good tool. I had no idea they had gotten so darn cheap. And it does have crimpers in the back, so that's something else of note. And I also really got to say, I love the precision plier that it has. This might be my favorite needle nose multi-tool. Most of them are quite robust here. They don't taper as nicely as this, and they're not as long either. So this actually is almost a true needle nose. And with the compound leverage at the very tip, I mean, it has... I mean, it's flattening my nail. I mean, I got to be careful. You almost have to be careful with the compound leverage system. It does, you could potentially mar or damage things because of how hard you're squeezing. It sometimes is accidentally, you know, too much. Let's just say that. The Powerlock. At the current price, I have to admit, this is one hell of a value. If they just change one thing, this goes from being like a pretty good tool to an amazing tool really fast. And I don't know if they'll ever change, but I hope they will hear me out. And this isn't just these tools, it's everything. 420 stainless for the frame is probably the biggest mistake they could make. You can only achieve 54 HRC with 420 stainless. That's true with all the tools here and pretty much the entire SOG lineup. If you are applying too much leverage to these gears, what's going to happen is they will deform. And once they start deforming, the whole thing stops working. With a better steel, I mean, it could be 420HC, it could be Nitro V, at a high hardness, at least 58, preferably 59 or 60, this could hold up a lot longer. That is the one downside of this tool. And if I recall, it's the #1 failure point in every video review that I've ever seen over a long period. So I've seen people use this tool heavily for multiple years, and almost always it's the gearing that fails, not the plier. And just from repeated pressure and deforming those teeth, that's where they can change. Because I think now especially, the compound leverage system is way better than I gave it credit for, but it's only ever going to be a novelty until they realize they have to make the frame or whatever the gearing is made out of significantly more robust. They could even design a frame where the gearing itself is separate from the frame and simply bolts into it, meaning that you could have the teeth section in a different steel that kind of is perfect for gears, right? Instead of having the entire frame in that setup, which would free them up to have the same inexpensive handle, but have a much stronger overall construction. Okay, as good as these are though, the next tool, well, it might be my favorite SOG ever. It's kind of embarrassing to be a multi-tool reviewer and realize there's a tool that you've never tried for years and it is actually really good, like surprisingly good. And it's also quite possible that I'm looking at it in a new context. The prices for these things have dropped substantially since SOG was bought. This tool was like $90 pretty consistently, and now you can find it on Amazon for around $60. To put that number in perspective, that's the same price as a Leatherman Bond, which is very much kind of a budget Leatherman. That's pretty impressive, especially when you kind of see what we have here. So it's basically like the Powerlock. Similar, it's actually, I think, the same weight, in fact, except that we have kind of the reverse, like a flipped over frame. So on this side, we actually have an assisted straight blade, and it disengages this way. There's also a secondary lock to kind of keep it from deploying. Well, I didn't fully lock it. I mean, that's one thing that you got. Okay, so now it's locked. Can't open it. And on the other side, we have a serrated blade, which is also locked. Hold on a second. And this is pretty cool. What's funny about it is I have been quoted in the past saying that the P4 is one of the few left-handed tools. I don't know how I missed the fact that the SOG Powerassist has been left-handed for, you know, forever. So yeah, shame on me for not realizing it. But yeah, this is an actual left-handed multi-tool. I mean, it absolutely is a left-handed tool. I mean, it's a serrated blade, sure, but it's still a blade. And that may matter even if you're right-handed, because you might be holding something and you need a knife and it's like, oh, look, you know, take care of business. Do I like the fact that they sacrificed all of this additional tool space for assisted? No. Would I prefer it to be unassisted so that I could, you know, get more implements? Of course. In fact, that would be like a much better variation, and I would love that. But I'm also not against it either if it's going to be in a package this inexpensive. Around $60, well, that's quite good for what I'm seeing at least. And yeah, and just for the record, I bought everything here on Amazon. This was not sent to me by SOG. In fact, we don't exactly see eye to eye, the two of us. Now, when you open this, the tool set, it's just a little bit different. We have the V cutter, we have the file, we have a Phillips flathead can opener, and the bottle opener flathead combo. I don't know how I would change this per se. If I could, I would probably swap out the file for a saw. That's my personal preference. And I think I wouldn't mind sacrificing both the can opener and the bottle opener flathead for the 1/4 inch socket adapter. That's my personal preference, but you know what? Like, I think it all depends on who you are. Bringing that up though, you know, SOG used to sell all of their components separately, so you could in fact change out tools. That was, I knew that was the thing, but they kind of stopped doing it, you know, 3 or 4 years ago when I got back into multi-tools, and I just never really fully noticed. Maybe they didn't emphasize that particular aspect. In fact, it was buried so far on their website, you had a hard time knowing that it even was a thing. But overall, at the same weight as the Powerlock, but with a one-handable blade on either left hand or right, that's pretty cool. That's actually pretty awesome. And it has the same plier head as we do on the Powerlock, right? The same basic setup. I gotta say, this is 100% a staple. I'm not, like you saw here with a couple instances, the assisted knife, it's kind of hit or miss, and I've seen reviews of it like not fully deploying. So why not just get rid of it and like put more tools in there? That's my personal opinion. But even as is, $60, not bad at all. I mean, that's only a little bit more expensive than the budget tools. And this is, well, I mean, it's kind of unique in the way it's set up. I'm having to correct myself a lot in this video. This is definitely one of those humbling experiences where you find out something is way better than you thought, and you've been ignoring it for a really long time, and you realize, man, I should have tried this a long time ago. That being said, the next tool shows how they've gone from this to kind of losing their way a little bit, so I want to focus on the Poweraccess Assist a little bit more. Okay, so this has been around for a long time. This is the Powerassist, and you know, it's a nice dimension. In fact, it's about 5/8 of an inch thick. So not too thick, relatively comfortable, and I would absolutely carry this in my pocket, even though it's 9.6 ounces. Meanwhile, there's a new tool that they brought out called the Poweraccess Assist. Now, the 4 outer implements are all assisted. And it's not, I wouldn't say, done very well. But the worst part about the whole thing for me is that this is where all the tools are. All the tools are within this distance. That's around 5/8 of an inch. But when you include the additional assisted sections, so all of the assisted mechanisms are in this outer frame, that brings it out to 7/8 of an inch, like almost an inch wide. And I would imagine also quite a bit heavier because of the added piece of steel on the outside. There is no way having assisted implements is worth that. And then when you combine the fact that that actually hurts some of these implements, like, not that one, like this one, the saw, then it really begs the question, why? Why would you do that? In case anyone was wondering, this is a big red flag that says to me, engineer that does not carry multi-tools. That's what it says to me. Because when you put a thumb stud on a saw, the length of that saw becomes the end of the thumb stud to the end. You kind of miss out on all these extra teeth. Because guess what's going to happen? It's going to stop right there on the thumb stud. Kind of silly. And then on top of it, you're adding an extra 1/8 of an inch just to make it assisted when it doesn't need to be at all. Look, see? Easy. Not a big deal, right? Not the smartest thing in the world, okay? The other thing is, on this side, we have a serrated blade, right? And then, if I flip it around and turn it around, I have the straight blade. So both blades are accessible to only a right-hander. I mean, of course, I could left-hand and kind of do the reverse flick thingy, but that might be a little difficult. It was like a missed opportunity simply to put the 2 blades on a single side, make them assisted, and skip out on adding any assistance to the opposite, cutting down 1/8 of an inch, cutting down the weight, cutting down the complexity, and cutting down the costs while keeping everything else intact. And the 2 implements you don't need assisted are probably the draw cutter, the pull cutter, which is worse than the Powerlock, and the saw. So huge miss there. But I don't want to overlook one of the best things that they did in the modern designs, and that is a bit holder inside of the plier head. So check this out. This is one of my favorite things that SOG does. It's one of the few things I really, really like. You can actually stick a bit in here. It'll lock in. It kind of has a magnet, and with the amount of leverage you have, you don't have to squeeze very hard. It'll hold that thing in there, and you have an inline screwdriver. That's what I'm talking about. That part of this is really good. In fact, if you took this right here, this plier head, and put it in this tool, wow, that would be great. Can we do that, please? Or at the very least, get rid of these stupid assisted things that you have, because otherwise this tool is actually kind of awesome. I mean, they managed to get 6 implements in here, and they managed to get, what, 5 implements in here, including the socket adapter. Not that it was technically necessary because of this, but hey, it's not bad. I'll take it. You know what I mean? Right now, off the top of my head, I can't think of something that is in their lineup that's better. But yeah, I mean, they have space to work with. My point is that these assisted additions, which is like, think about it, you have all this steel, right? You have this little section right here, and the only advantage that I see that you've gained is a little bit of ergonomics in the plier aspect. Not nearly enough. And the cool thing about having the compound leverage system is that you don't have to apply as much pressure to achieve the same result. So, if they had gotten rid of it, and yes, that was just like exposed metal, you wouldn't need to press that hard to hold on to something. Or you could just do one of the 2 sides, right? You could have the 2 blades that are assisted, just like you do over here, across from each other though. And that way you get to cut down the dimension by 1/8 of an inch, and on top of it, you cut down the weight. This is, I think, 10.6 ounces. This is 9.6 ounces. So, I mean, there you go. just so much potential. The more I look at SOG, the more potential I see that is being squandered. And the compound leverage system done correctly could end up being a huge win for them. And they've been doing it for years, but doing it wrong. They have the frame as part of the gear, when all they really have to do here is separate the frame from the gearing apparatus. You have a flat piece of steel right here with the gear that mounts into the frame, and that piece of steel can be different gear ratios. It can be out of a much better steel, and it doesn't require you to bend it either, right? It's going to be a flat, nice flat piece of metal that this frame can then mount into. It not only does it do that, it also gives you the opportunity to have only a few screws to be able to take out the entire plier head, replace the plier head, or even have different types of plier heads in general. Like, I don't know, a blunt nose plier, or a diagonal cutter, or my goodness, there's so many things they could do with this system, and they're using it in such a weird way. They're focusing on all the wrong things, like assisted blades that no one asked for at all. Okay. My reason I'm getting like wound up about this is I'm starting to really grasp the potential of what SOG is bringing to the table, but they're not fully utilizing it. And it's so strange, so strange. Now, right now, I don't think any of their tools are made in America. But wouldn't it be great to do like what Gerber does, where they have pretty much everything made in China or Taiwan, and then one tool that is genuinely USA made, like one like flagship tool that really just kind of nails it. They could take this system, what I've explained about separating the gears, and they could do something seriously over the top. So good, in fact, I think they could genuinely be a leader with just that one tool alone. Not maybe in the everyday carry environment where you need something a little bit lighter, but what about the tradesmen who like the idea of the compound leverage system, but they're going to abuse it very quickly, and it's going to cause the gearing to deform. Like for those guys, for the hard users, my God, the opportunity here is huge. Why isn't SOG taking this instead of doing these, I don't know, lifestyle designs like the Agus MT and stuff like that? I mean, come on. This is where, I mean, there's clearly some magic here. It just feels like they're missing the entire point. I don't know. Am I wrong? You let me know down in the comments. I'm coming around to the idea of what SOG is bringing to table, but as it sits, I mean, they're kind of missing out on the best possible opportunity to take the reins away from all the other major brands. At least that's my thought. Let me know what you think. The Poweraccess, excellent tool. 60 bucks, you better believe I'd buy that, 100%. The Powerallack and the Powerallack V cutter, oh yeah, absolutely. Great tools, especially at the price points, 53, 52, and 54. Wow, I can't believe I'm going to say this, but I have SOG Multitools I actually recommend. Wow. As always, thank you guys so much for your time, and we'll talk again soon.